guys, welcome back here to Advanced Bass Fishing, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel today. And we are going to be talking about one of my favorite spring lures in today's video, and that's fishing the Wobblehead. And I'm going to give you guys some tips and advice on how it works and where you want to fish it, how to set it up and how to rig it, baits I like to use on it. But it is a deadly bait this time of year. Anytime, that water temperature is like between 50 and 65 degrees in the springtime of the year, Wobbleheads catch a ton of fish. They catch quality fish. So we're going to get into that in today's video here. Also, guys, before we get started, quick invitation. Anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, all you got to do is go to my Facebook page, Intuitive Angling with Randy Blaukat. Just shoot me a private message, and I'll get you all the details for that. And also, I'll have all the information in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description to set up your Wobbleheads if you guys would like to take advantage of that link. So really appreciate that. Okay. This is a technique that Tommy Biffle, a lot of you guys are familiar with him. He developed this technique probably 20 years ago. And here's what a Wobblehead is if you're not familiar with it. It's an EWG hook, just an old EWG with just a football head attached to the end of it that's just wobbles like that. It moves. So in other words, it's basically like a football head jig that is not stationary. And this wobble in effect right here, as you can see, it makes the hook pivot a lot like there. So it gives the bait on the back of the head a lot more action. It's a completely different type of a look. And when you're fishing a wobblehead, you fish it different than a football head jig. It's close to a football head jig, but at the same time, it's different. And the fish will bite it different in different situations. But that's the basic setup with it. Now, the bait that I use on it, there's a lot of different, lures that you can use on it. A bunch of lures work good on it. But my favorite, guys, is this Zoom Z-Craw Jr. Out of all the baits that I've experimented with a Wobblehead, this is my favorite here. I catch more fish on this bait on the Wobblehead than I do any other soft plastic. I'll link that in the description. And what you want to do is just come through about 1/2 of an inch, thread it back on there, just like you would with the EWG hook. Come all the way through the bait, with the hook's exposed, and then you do want to tuck it back in there just a little bit. So here's the setup after it's finished here. Let me get a little that line there. That's the Wobblehead. Super, super simple design. Looks sort of weird, but guys, they will bite this thing like crazy in the springtime of the year. I mean, March and April and early May are the best time of years to fish it. And I would rather fish. I'll tell you this for sure. It's like if you gave me a choice there, Andy, you can have a Wobblehead or you can have a football head jig. And that's all you got to fish with for the whole year. I would pick a Wobblehead in a second over a football head jig. I catch twice the fish on a Wobblehead than I do a football head jig. So it's a little bit different also to fish as far as how you want to retrieve it, and we'll get into the areas. But most of the time when you're fishing a football head jig, this is how people fish a football. They'll throw it out there, let it hit the bottom, and then they'll let me adjust the camera a little bit here. Got a little bit off here. Got a new camera mount, sort of a little bit different for me to get used to. But anyway, on a football head jig, you're throwing it out there, and then you're just dragging it like that and taking up the slack and dragging it like that. But the Wobblehead's different. You want to fish the Wobblehead just like a slow crankbait. So I'll cast it out there just like that, and I'm just reeling it. I got the rod tip pointed straight at the bait, and I'm just slow reeling it, just like a crankbait. I want that bait to maintain contact with the bottom at all times. If I lose contact with the bottom, I let it fall back down. But it's like fishing a crankbait. It's just like, just so easy to do. It's like it's the easiest technique in bass fishing is fishing a Wobblehead, slow crank, just like that. And the bite that you get on it, it's a really cool bite because there's two different ways that they bite it. The first way they bite it is and the most common is you'll be throwing it out there and you're reeling it in, and you can feel the thing sort of just, it's bouncing along the bottom like that, and you can feel it coming across the rocks. And then all of a sudden you're reeling it like that, and it feels like you've just lost contact with the bottom, almost like the bait lifts up a little bit. And then, you'll reel a couple more cranks. Once you lose contact with that bottom, you lose a couple more, or reel a couple more times, and then you feel tension on the line, and you feel it's in the fish's mouth at that time. The other time that they hit it is when you're reeling it just slow like there, and all of a sudden your line just jumps. And that's usually when they suck it in from a long way away. When the line jumps, what happens, it's usually a bigger fish, and you'll be reeling it along the bottom like that. A big bass will come up from behind it, flare its gills, and when it flares its gills, that bait's gonna get sucked back into its gullet, and that's what makes it, that line jump like that. But the rest of the time, you know, they hear this thing moving along the rocks and disturbing the rocks, and they swim up to it just like that, and they just grab it like that. And that's when you feel it lose contact with the bottom, and they have it. And typical hook set, guys, it's like, you know, when I know there's a fish on there, like I'm reeling it like that, it's like, oh, there's a fish there. I'll let the fish move a little bit with it, and then just, you know, reel into it and set the hook, you know, not real hard. Most of the time I'm using a little bit heavier line. I like fishing my wobbleheads on 15 to 20 pound line, depending upon how deep the water is. Same with the heads. There's two basic head sizes I like. I like either a 7/16 ounce or a 9/16 ounce, depending on how deep I'm fishing. You don't have to go light with it because you're not worried about the rate of fall since it's always on the bottom. The 7/16 ounce is a little bit easier to fish because it doesn't get hung up as much as the 9/16. But if I'm fishing water depth like 15, 20, 25 foot, I'll go to the 9/16, or if it's really windy, that's what I do with that. And 99% of the time, guys, I got a green pumpkin Zoom Z-Crawl Junior on it. And I'll maybe put a little bit of chartreuse on the tail, but that's the setup. Okay, now what you want to fish it on, it's all about fishing flatter areas with this. Flatter areas is the key for a wobblehead. Wobblehead does not work worth a dang on steep banks. It's going to get hung up. You can't throw it on something like a riprap bank or a channel bank. The places I like to fish a wobblehead are gravelly, small rock, or clay type areas. They can be banks, they can be points, whatever. Probably my number one area is some type of a flat point. Ideally, you know, this time of year in the spring, the fish are going to be a little bit shallower. So I'm going to be, you know, keeping my boat like in 15 or 20 foot of water, throwing up almost to the bank, and I'm going to be expecting the bites in less than 10 foot of water on the flatter type points. That's the number one thing. And the other flatter banks that I concentrate in are the flatter banks in the coves and bays where I think those fish are getting ready to spawn. So flat points, flat banks, smaller rock is better. Ideal situation is rock about that big around, or gravelly or clay. Comes across a lot better. It's just, that's what's unique to that bait for that. And also, guys, don't hesitate to throw this thing in really, really shallow water. I don't fish a football head jig shallow, but guys, I've caught a bunch of fish on a wobblehead like in 3 foot of water. So as long as you got a flat bank, you know, just fish it in any depth that you're fishing. And, you know, water clarity, it works in a wide range of water clarities. I've caught them in water visibility of 2 foot with it before, and 10 foot. So it works in a wide range of water clarity, different variations there. And again, you might tweak with the bait a little bit. I mean, like I said, I've caught them on on a brush hog trailer. I've caught them on, you know, like some type of, you know, speed cross, something like that. I've caught them just on a stick bait on it. Anything will work, but I've done the best on that Z-Crawl Junior. So anyway, guys, give it a try. It's one of the best, funnest baits to fish, you know, from mid-March to about early May. Get you a lot of bites on it. Super easy to fish. If you go fishing with somebody that doesn't fish very much, this is a great bait to tie on for them. So hope it helped you guys catch a few. We'll talk later.